There is one common currency throughout everything that you are learning in painting loose florals. Now, I think when I first started painting loose florals, the most hard part for me was following a YouTube tutorial and then noticing that I was never able to get the effortless feeling that I was getting in the video. What I did not know was that the artist that was painting all of this is probably in stage 4, while me first trying this and seeing the title beginner, I kind of felt like, oh, maybe I could try it out. And since it's tailored for a beginner, hey, it shouldn't be that hard, right? But then this is where I want to share with you some of the underlying skills, that common currency that goes through all of the different stages within the artist passage. Now, if you have not heard me speak before, I'm Jillian and I developed the artist passage where you can learn a lot more about with all of the different videos I've done about the artist passage, the different stages that we go through as we are learning our watercolor journey. This really helps artists to find where their direction is and what are the different milestones in each of the stages so that they don't feel overwhelmed, they stop comparing with others, and also start to feel more joy and give themselves permission to just paint freely. Now, without further ado, let's jump into today's episode. So let's think about turning off all of the tutorials and whatever saved videos that you have had and start reflecting on that common currency throughout all of our loose floral paintings. Now, this is where whenever we are expressing ourselves, we don't use a crayon and we don't use a pencil, and this is where we are really using our brush. Now, brush work is the one thing that transcends all of the different stages. Many artists think that brush work is a stage 1 skill. And while this is really something that you start with, I also feel like this becomes a language that evolves through the different stages within the artist passage. Now, here is where today I want to take you on a journey of a floral class that we have done in Brush Movement Collective. And within Brush Movement, this is how the artist passage evolves, because I want to get artists to kind of understand what they need in their practice so that they don't feel like they need to be ahead, or they also feel relieved because, they don't have to do all of the things really. There are so many different things in watercolor. Now today, I want you to be able to sustain this creative practice. And in order for us to do so, we really need to know what stage we are in. So if you're ready, I'm going to be showing you a whole bunch of classes grouped in different stages and how we use brushwork to help us to express and to show you how brushwork transcends across the different stages so that you can actually see that one common currency, which is brushwork. Before we paint florals, we make marks. I want you to think of this as really learning the alphabet before you start writing poetry. Every time you press on your brush, you pull on it, all of this is really part of syllabus that you need to go through in order to start shaping your marks with personality. Now at this stage, the marks don't need to be anything. They're meant to be playful, experimental, and kind of giving you a sense of how to hold and connect with your brush as you are loosening up and starting to see shapes, whether it is on a reference photo or even starting to think about how some of these marks can be translated into something meaningful before you actually start getting caught up in the idea that everything that you paint needs to be productive. I did a video where I talked about the importance of play, and this is really the stage where so many of us skip past and don't spend enough time at. So I really encourage you to get to know your brush at this stage so that you build that nice strong foundation before we head on to the next stage where we start to translate them into something meaningful. Now let's start expressing ourselves by thinking about the marks that we were able to make with our brush, and depending on the shapes that you are playing with, be it a round brush, a filbert brush, or a flat brush, all of these are going to give you different floral shapes. We are not trying to get a perfect flower. Instead, we are letting the gesture of your brush suggest the form of these florals. We want to start building a vase of flowers not by controlling the outcome, but really trusting the whole vocabulary of marks that we have learned when we were spending time in our stage 1 cycle of the artist passage. Now, the artist passage is really this space, as I mentioned, a way for us to understand what are the different skills that's required to help us to move along in our own journey. And speaking of which, so many of us think that brushwork is really where it's just for stage 1 artists. But if you think about it, this really is something that carries on throughout your painting journey. And when you look at effortless strokes, when you look at the way a painting communicates direction, all of this is representative within the brush. Your petals are really brush movements with intention, and in order to let your florals dance, you don't want to be painting every single detail that you see, and you are beginning to move into the next stage where we're starting to refine and go deep, because we want to see how brushwork brings about mood, depth, and balance. Now that we have played, I want us to refine. This is where we are still getting playful, and notice how at this stage in this floral class that I presented to my brush movement members, I am using a toned paper. We are actually going to be using gouache in place of watercolor and understanding properties of another water-based medium, where in this case it's a little bit more opaque. Then we are also going to start practicing layering. Now, so many of us want to jump straight into layering and skip the important part of understanding water control, which is an important job that your brush also needs to know. Now, before we jump into layering, you need to understand the different consistencies of paint. Just because watercolor is a transparent medium, the chances of overworking is so high when we don't know how much paint and water to have in our brush, which results in a lot of frustration and also wondering if we are doing the right thing. So I highly recommend that you do not skip your understanding or think that a brush is only a paint applicator. We really need to see its role as a way to express with water, so that you start to think about how to create volume in your painting, which is a stage 3 skill where we start thinking about layers, depth, and balance within your painting. Now, this is really the myth-busting stage, because so many of us think that brushwork is just a beginner skill. However, I want to share with you how it is the greatest tool for your expression. In this particular floral class for my brush movement members, this is a stage 4 and 5 class where I want to show them how you can explore your brush not just to apply color but to apply emotion. We are playing with soft edges, water, pigment, pressure, and how your brush really becomes your voice. The whole mixed media part just adds texture, contrast, and a little bit of personality. And in this case, we have stopped painting. Instead, we are really composing. This leads me to share with you how important this same commonality of brushwork is throughout all the different stages in our own learning practice. The artist passage has also allowed me to share with artists within Brush Movement Collective the way in which they can start thinking about more ways to expand beyond just making marks, but rather to use their brush as a tool for expression, for water control, and also to help them to think about using space in their paintings. This really showcases how, when we put paint to paper, it is not just to take up space or to decorate whatever that we have in front of us, but rather it is about how we want to think about the story that we are telling as we are expressing our art by the time we hit stage 4 and 5. I want to just start off by saying how grateful I am that you sat with me and took a look at how brushwork can really help you to think about that one skill that is going to transcend all the stages, and the importance of really kind of doing the boring things like drills and honing the way in which we are making marks. But that being said, I've done a video where I talked about how practice does not have to be boring, where we're sitting down and just doing drills. In fact, it's really about exploring the way you use your brush, reconnecting with how you hold it, thinking about the marks that you really like, or even how your body moves with it. Everyone is going to have a different preference and a way of using their brush. And this is also going to show you how we have actually moved from one type of floral painting to the next, depending on what stage we are at, the knowledge that we have, and how we slowly grow our ability to not just know, but to apply the skills is going to change and shift. And this is how you actually slowly, gradually move from one stage of the artist passage to the next. I want to sit you down and tell you why the artist passage was created. Now, the very first time I did a floral class, this was called our Peonies Masterclass. It was also the first time that I invited members into my community Brush Movement Collective. And at that point in time, we just had one class called the Peonies Masterclass. And during that class, I allowed everyone to paint their own way. I told people, I encouraged them to do it. And at the end of the class, when people were sharing their artwork on Facebook, one of the things that I started to notice was that everyone had the same painting that I did. While as a teacher, it made me feel like, wow, my instructions must have been pretty clear for people to actually be able to replicate my painting. But then this is where it made me stop and think about what art really should be, how it should feel, and whether I was also missing a group of people who struggled with replicating that very class and then start doubting themselves, thinking there was something wrong with them or not creative enough. And here is where I started to think about how we could actually cater to artists of different stages and how exactly we can support each of you with the various skills that we want to grow within the stage. This also allows you to then start to really build your skill set so that you are better able to look at a painting and then go, yes, I know what is in it, I can see the skills, and I'm going to try and apply it. Now, this is going to be so different from taking a tutorial or watching something step by step and following the recipe to the T. So with that in mind, I want to then share with you the importance of understanding what your stage is within the artist passage. Hopefully, this story also inspires you to see how I choose to teach my classes differently. And I don't want to teach every artist the same, because one of the things that I truly feel about art is that it should be about expression and a lot less about just copying. Now here's the part where you might actually feel like, but Jillian, I'm in stage 1, shouldn't copying be okay? Well, I want to say that yes, there are stages where you do need to start with copying, because you need to have that foundation, you need to have to understand what the different methods are, and how to actually apply the skills. And this is where copying becomes such a powerful tool because we all learn through that as well. My hope is to give artists the tools and the ability to empower themselves with skills so that they are better able to make decisions and then apply it on their painting freely. I hope that brushwork is really that one thing that you are going to walk away with after today's painting session, and hopefully you also get to see how it's being translated across different paintings and different stages so that you become so much more clear with what you need with your practice so that you can sustain it and create more flowers that you feel proud of.